Hello, and welcome to 10 Minutes That Can Change Your Life. This program is brought to you each week by the Port Huron Church of Christ, located at 756 17th Street, right here in the city of Port Huron. If you've been following us for the past 3 weeks, we want you to know that we really appreciate all of the support we have been receiving. And if you enjoy this program, would you do us a favor and spread the word by sharing it with your friends on Facebook? Thank you in advance for doing that. So, what do you want to talk about today? I know. How about fear? As you know, fear can take many forms, and some fear is legitimate, and other fear, it can be false, conjured, and even made up. So let me think. What should we be afraid of? What do you think? You got any suggestions? I got one. How about wild animals? We really should be afraid of wild animals, shouldn't we? How about this? You're driving in your car, you look in the rearview mirror, and you see red and blue lights flashing at you and a voice yelling, "Pull over." That would invoke fear, wouldn't it? So how about this? I got it. You're driving down the expressway, and all of a sudden you begin to smell something burning and realize there's an electrical fire inside of your automobile. That too would invoke fear. Or how about this? Someone approaches you brandishing a gun saying, "Give me all of your money." Now that would create fear in us. But you know, fear comes in other ways too. What about a person who is afraid to leave a horrible job because they are feeling that they won't find another that pays at least as well as the one that they currently have? So they hang on, although they really dislike everything about it, but they reason that a bad job is better than no job at all. Does that sound familiar? You know, the fear of quitting a job is a genuine fear. Feeling as though you won't find another job, now that's not necessarily true. Sometimes we can take a position that through the power of our imaginations, we can create scenarios that don't even exist. And these created scenarios can be so real in our minds that we have a hard time convincing ourselves that we conjured up the situation and it's not even real. I believe that this is the true definition of fear. Not fear in being afraid, but as the acronym of fear, which is false evidence appearing real. That's false evidence appearing real. That's right. We can talk ourselves into buying into situations that do not exist. And then we act out our part as though it does. And sometimes we do such a good job that we actually convince ourselves this is really happening. That kind of fear can paralyze you, not in the physical sense, but in the emotional. And you know what it does? It thrusts you into a position where you can't make a decision either right or wrong. It's like you get stuck in the middle with no means of a way of finding either end. You know, recently I was in a conversation with a family member, and until then I suspected that they had a problem, but hadn't really talked to them to confirm the exact issue. That was until this conversation. And then I discovered the nature of the problem. And more importantly, how they were paralyzed from doing anything to change their circumstances, even though the present situation as it was started undoing the strings that held their marriage and family together. Now, can you imagine the difficulty of that situation? You need to make a job move, but you're petrified of making a move in fear the end will be worse than the job you currently have, and more so, it will hurt your family. So you do nothing and watch as your family slowly slips away. You may say to a person like that, "Hey, why don't you do something? What's wrong with them?" You know what? My answer is a simple one. Nothing is wrong. except they have psyched themselves out and created for themselves a box from which they have no idea how to escape. I call it being locked in a room with an open door. You feel locked in a room as if you can't get out, even though the door is wide open. And in reality, nothing is keeping them from escaping the room. So, what about you? What are you afraid of? What keeps you awake at night, worrying? Is it finding the money to keep the bills paid? Now that's a pretty common problem. Perhaps your mate wants things that you can't afford, and since you already work 2 jobs, it's impossible to work a third. So what are you going to do? Well, maybe your car keeps having trouble, and as a result, suddenly you have been to work so much you fear they're going to let you go. You know, if you're not careful in all of these situations, you can easily find yourself taking destructive action that only makes matters worse. You know, one guy I know, he kept having car problems, so he quit his job because, get this, he feared being fired. Now, the problem was, management had no intention of firing, but he couldn't be convinced of that. Now, I believe there's only one way to deal with fear, and that's to face it head on. That's right. Here are some facts I think that will help you to understand and deal with your fears. In 90% of the cases, the problem that causes the fear can be addressed and overcome. So, look into the nature of the problem that's causing the fear, and you may find out the resolution to your problem is only a phone call or 2 away. Also, if you continue, now this is important, if you continue to run from your fears, your life of running will never change. So let me give you 3 great suggestions for fighting fear. Number 1, understand that fear is a normal human response, unless, of course, it's created. So if something evokes fear in you, first thing, examine it closely to discover the reason for the fear. Also, exhibit a positive attitude that you can and will resolve the problem. And also, refuse to allow the fear to paralyze you into doing nothing. Number 2, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you receive a letter in the mail that causes fear in you, take positive action by calling the sender of the letter and learning everything you can about the problem that was created. And then seek help, maybe from the source of the letter. Many times they're just trying to get you to do something. Or you can seek help from others whom you feel can help you resolve your problem. And remember the internet. It can be a great source of all kinds of information, so take advantage of that. Number 3, and this is probably the most important, don't accept advice from just anyone. You know, there are a lot of people who think they know everything about everything, when in actuality, they know very, very little. So stay away from them. They will only confuse you. Confirm the person of whom you seek help as being a legitimate resource to help you. And also listen, don't let fear ruin your life. Remember, some types of fear are healthy to protect us from dangerous situations, and some are not. The type of fear that we are discussing is made-up fear that will intensify and overwhelm us. So let's look at how the problem begins. It all begins with a very small problem or situation, and it grows into a very large, out-of-control monster. And at this point, the person responsible realizes that they are incapable of handling this large, out-of-control problem. So what do? They go into their bedroom, they lock the door, they put their heads under the pillow until the problem goes away. Now, you know, both you and I know it doesn't go away. So, if you know someone like this who makes false evidence appear real, seek to understand their thinking. The worst thing that you can do is to criticize them for the way that the problem makes them feel. Instead, help them to see the problem in the correct light as it truly is. You know, facing your fears can be difficult, but I am confident that you will and can overcome your fear and live a happier, more productive life. This is Lamar Black, the minister of the Port Huron Church of Christ, located at 756 17th Street, right here in the city of Port Huron, reminding you that you can change your life 10 minutes at a time. Don't forget to share this program with your friends on Facebook, and we'll be right here next week with 10 more minutes that can help you change your life. Until then, stay in and stay safe.